So let me try this out. Hi. Okay, that's my favorite thing about this festival. That's amazing. Thank you so much for having me here, for saying hi back. Thanks to Terry and Laura and the other people who have helped to make this get-together happen. It's been wonderful to be here, and I'm aware that I'm in fine company. I'd like to say a little extra thanks to Kitty Lewis from Brick Books. Brick is my publisher, and I don't think I have to say more than the fact that, you know, Kitty as publisher is here. She's here at the festival with me, so thank you, Kitty. Let's see, so I'm going to read mostly from Heaven's Thieves, and we'll see how time goes. I may read a couple of new books as well, new poems as well. New books, that would be something. So I'm just going to start with the first poem in the book. Winter in the Garden. Everything sleeps. The serpent curls round the roots of the apple tree, which is bare. The leaves have not gone, but have changed into thought. Last year's apples lie under a bed of snow. In spring, they'll rise into the branches again. Meanwhile, they dream, sometimes of the legendary chunk of apple carried down to earth in Eve's stomach, though the real meaning of fallen eludes them. In jobless towns along the US-Mexico border, 80% of the young men want to be hired assassins. What can Eden find to compare to this? Wanting to live some kind of life while it's still possible. Maybe the blaze of sun across the snow. Maybe that. But not the drip, drip, drip of the melt as paradise wakens. Not the bright sky. Nothing that has not had to die. So I do have academic interests. I've done a bunch of philosophy, and I studied beauty while I was doing philosophy. And an idea that I came across again and again was the idea that beauty extends some kind of a promise to us. So the epigraph for this poem is about that. It comes from the philosopher Theodor Adorno, and the epigraph is, "Natural beauty shares the weakness of every promise with that promise's inextinguishability." So if you're with me, there's a promise that is never quite fulfilled, but it never quite gets stamped out either. So the title of the poem is Oranges for Adorno. Large poured, swaddled in pith, they swell in the Andalusian heat. Each tree has promised itself right up from the ground, branches full of dying suns, fallen soldiers, purveyors of false hope, as though, having let go the branch, one could yet hang from it, uneaten. But wasps chew at the rinds, determined that no fruit will go unforaged. So the longed-for apotheosis comes to naught. Unless we count the lives of insects as our own, which we may do, bound together as we are. To say it otherwise, what if time were indeed a god? And if all who live have their part in its immortality, wearing its groove deeper with their passing, each scarred and bitten communicant? Pick the orange, scour the rind, eat and feel its sugars spike your bloodstream. its fate both fulfilled and open-ended. A promise carried forward in you, ever incarnate. Thank you. This next one is also on the beauty theme. It's called The Invention of Beauty. The swan especially doesn't seem real anymore. So we ignore his arched neck, beckoning, inviting us to slip off the noose, asking us to swoon like we used to, as he glides undialectically along, dipping his sovereign head into the mirror and emerging again, unchanged, unfathomed, trailing past in invisible quotation marks, as if hundreds of versions of himself didn't float in his wake, a raft of platitudes, as if he were truly just a single swan swimming on a sunny summer's day. This next one, there is an allusion to not beauty itself, but the painting by Michelangelo on the roof of the Sistine Chapel, which I've never actually seen, but where God and Adam are reaching out for one another. That's all you need to know. It is based on a true story, for what it's worth. That always seems to make things a little more interesting and exciting. So, fear of wasps. He tried to explain it to me, how his friend fell off his bike and broke his clavicle after a wasp flew up his shirt and stung him repeatedly, continuing to sting him even after he'd fallen into the ditch and lay in the dirt howling, while my friend laughed at him, doubled over, reaching out half-heartedly but too weak to clasp his friend's outstretched hand. The story told me almost nothing about wasps, but his failure to grasp his friend's hand puts me in mind of Adam's finger almost but not quite touching God's. And perhaps the wasps are somehow the embodiment of the space between those two hands, that inch of not being. They are the gap my friend fears in the world. Flying zeros, buzzing nihilists, their carrion-loving bodies a lacuna carried from one day into the next. It's not a fear of being stung, but of being stung and reaching out and finding nothing there. For he loved his friend, but despised him in equal measure. And the gap between those things he cannot account for. Thanks. Let's see. I'm having that struggle with my earlier self as well. not sure who's winning. Let's see. Here's possibly a more lighthearted one. Possibly. This is based on a true story as well. We'll try that again. It's a piece of graffiti that I came across, and there was a spelling mistake in it. So the poem is called Missing. I think you'll be able to hear the spelling mistake. Lauren is gorgeous, scraped into the paint on a metal door near the high school. I don't know Lauren, but I believe it. Who isn't today? The trickling sounds of wind-blown meltwater everywhere, and every one of us missing a vowel. Ovid would have approved. This is how to chronicle beauty. Scratch it in. Show the something it takes from you that makes you ache a little. O avid one, most lovely vandal. And if your ode hints at gorgons, so much the better. We need their boldness to dare use words like shimmering, luminous. Droplets fall in sheaves from the gutters. The day's missing vowel expands in the sky all afternoon, giving off a light that dissolves in water as Latin dissolves into all the modern Romance languages. Look up, Gorgas Lauren. The day awaits you. Okay, I officially want Angeline in my every audience from now on. Gonna have some water. I left my actual water bottle in an art gallery, strangely enough, so I'm reduced to this. A non-BPA-free Nalgene bottle. Okay, so this one is coming from the Bible, the story of Martha and Mary when Jesus is coming into town and they're getting things ready for him, and Martha's a little bit OCD and can't seem to sit down and relax and enjoy him when he gets there, unlike Mary, who, you know, takes time to sort of host him. So the epigraph is from Luke. Martha, Martha, the Lord answered, you are worried and upset about many things. My name. He said it twice. Martha, Martha. That made it easy. I understood. Listen, hear how his voice drops, deepens the second time. Martha. As though he were laying something down, something he'd taken from me, which was too heavy for me, too heavy for him as well. If a name spoken once is a claim, twice is the claim undone. Twice is love. They said he could walk on water. I believe that now. I wanted to speak his name, but hadn't the strength. That's why, since he left, I cannot go about my work. I stand in the kitchen, reciting pairs of names. Fish, fish, fork, fork, stone, stone, spider, spider. Trying to match the timbre of my voice to his, so the thing named settles, so my troubles subside, and he too comes to rest. Lord, Lord. Here's a short one. Summer, Madrid. My in-laws live in Madrid, so I've been lucky enough to get to go there. Summer, Madrid. The woman unfolds her fan. It is weighted, cradled in her purse all morning. Every slender rib, another Eve. She can tell it's been talking with the dead again. The lacquered poppies have been blowing in the fields. You have to clap. You should go to one. It was one of those things, I went to Madrid, and the fans, like you picture the fans, but you don't think they'll really be there, but they really were there. The women really did keep them in their purses. And this next one is a poem in 3 parts. I will pause a little bit extra long between parts so you know that we're shifting a little bit. The Dead. This morning, the obdurate golden green grass, blurred with dew, buried in the house's shadow. Deer, their faces softened by sleep, raise their heads and look through you, draining you of motive. You become as still as they are, waiting, as though under it all lurked another, more comprehensible world, carrying itself so slowly as to go unnoticed. What if the dead don't leave? Not exactly. What if instead they're what orients you? The sixth sense that turns you this way and that, tilts your face toward the light. What if they are the light? That would explain, wouldn't it, the strange clarity after someone dies, the peculiar radiance things acquire, even the least of them, your loss everywhere transformed, your suffering grown impersonal, self-sufficient. Each item buzzes with the vibrancy of the one who's gone. An inherited light that is no longer his or hers, that only you still recognize. So every time you close your eyes, something of that person leaves again. Let's be clear about the stillness you felt in the deer this morning. And yes, you're still staring, still feel the lukewarm glass against your forehead as you think of the dew and of the grass and of the deer themselves now vanished from the lawn. It had nothing to do with the dead. The dead don't stop with their hearts in their throats. To die is not to wash through the body of a deer like a ghost. It isn't to skulk under a living skin. It's a change in the value of things. There's no such thing as the dead. When the dead die, they don't hold anything back. Otherwise, a bitterness, like the sediment in wine. It's pure alchemy. The world pours itself into the vessel of the new day, and the liquid runs clear. And that's what hurts, the clarity. It leaves you staring out the window, wondering what to forgive. The lawn more beautiful than it should be. The blades of grass all bent one way, silvered and utterly coherent, like a mirror with no face in it. It's hard to breathe after that one. I'm going to read a couple of new ones. I was involved in a conversation last night about religion, and I was saying that I really wish that I could believe the things that would allow me to go to church. I'm fascinated by religion, and yet I can't quite feel my way into it. And yet I have this feeling like if I was raised by atheists. I have this feeling like if I had been raised in a religious family, I might have been really good at being religious. So this is a little bit on that theme. There's a line in here from Sylvia Plath, "To lie with my hands turned up." That's her. And that's all you need. Ecstasy. When I step out from my dim basement apartment, there's a park that looks almost artificially bright. Another of summer's glimmering chimeras. Someday, I expect it will grasp its own unreality and vanish altogether. Meantime, I often see nuns there, in their pale blue summer habits, strolling round the pond in what I take to be the leisure of their calling. I remember wanting as a child to be a nun, a desire of which I am still unfairly somewhat ashamed. I didn't love God, I didn't know God, but I wanted to live like that, to lie with my hands turned up. It was the sky I wanted, especially the pale rim that appeared first, before anyone claimed it. The paler, the better. It wasn't about wanting to diminish, though. I wanted to be more than. What I craved was a kind of ecstasy, in the sense of being somewhere else. I wanted to walk with God into a clarity I could only imagine, and which I still imagine as the nuns glide by, emanating from the neighborhood's crumbling masonry, floating under the ash trees like a scent, a whiff of girlish fantasy. But why girlish? Why is it so often girls who fall into these baffling passions, platonic cravings? Hands folded, wind rumpling their wimples, the nuns make me sad. I remember the girl I was, and her not quite vanished desire to be saintly, a word she would never have used. She had no word for it, but we can call it untroubled, because that's what she really meant. Like the pond around which the nuns are now drifting. Constant like that. But as close as she could come was to imagine herself one of those women in plain dresses who seemed to have escaped some pain that lay like a stone at the unreal bottom of the pond. So this one is brand new. It came out of a writing workshop. Sometimes in workshops you try things out and they don't work, and occasionally something turns into something. It's called Obad, the Bathroom Wall, Obad being a morning poem. Just figure out, maybe it's better here. The movement that is almost no movement, a leaf shadow, as if nothing were a thing that had passed through just now, as if some idea, justice, love, truth, had paused and considered for a moment climbing down from the ether to join us in the bodily predicament, drawn to our hesitant air, marginal existence. As if some gesture of mine, reaching for the hairbrush, flushing the toilet, had introduced an element of friction into its breathless passage. And it paused, as if the gesture had been some kind of plea, which it surely was, always is. Oh, infallible intelligibles, give us a sign. And this was the sign. It paused. It paused. The leaf fluttered, my contrary heart sped up, and then it passed on. Thanks again.